Welcome to St. Lucia. This volcanic Caribbean island is known for its mountains, waterfalls, mud baths, and more. The iconic mountains in St. Lucia are called the Pitons, twin mountain peaks that rise dramatically above the Caribbean Sea. And St. Lucia is also known as a honeymooner's paradise, with plenty of resorts and beaches. Hi everyone, my name is Emily from Two Roaming Souls, and today I want to share some helpful tips on how to plan a trip to St. Lucia. Jake and I visited for our honeymoon back in October of 2022, and we split the trip into two different styles of vacations. The first week we stayed at an all-inclusive and wined and dined, and then the second portion we headed south in our rental car and stayed at a vacation rental in Soufriere. So we want to share some helpful tips to help you plan your trip to St. Lucia. You can either choose the luxurious side at a beach resort, or you can choose the more adventurous side, and we want to help you plan that trip. So stay tuned as we jump into everything you need to know about planning a trip to St. Lucia. So first, let's briefly brush on visas. Most North American countries and surrounding Caribbean islands will not require a visa to get into St. Lucia, as long as your trip does not exceed 6 weeks. But there are other countries that might require a visa, and the Department of External Affairs put together an incredible spreadsheet where it lists every country and whether or not you need a visa to enter into St. Lucia. So I'll share that spreadsheet in the description below so that you can check out to see if your country requires a visa or not. And if your country does require a visa, it costs around 125 Eastern Caribbean dollars, which is equivalent to about 46 USD. Getting your visa processed takes about 5 business days, but they do suggest to at least apply for your visa 2 weeks prior to your travel dates. I'll leave a link below with all of that information and how you can apply for your visa and where to send it. Okay, now that we know how to legally get into the country, let's talk about which part of the island you might want to visit. There are a few different popular areas to stay around the island. The west side of the island is the most popular because it borders the Caribbean Sea, so the water is typically calmer and warmer. The northwestern part of the island is the most populated area, and this is where you'll find the capital city of Castries and Gros-Islet. Along the whole beachfront, this is where you'll find tons of luxury resorts and where most tourists will stay on the island. In the middle part of the island, you'll find Marigot Bay, and this is a nice protected area where a lot of people that own boats or maybe private charter to St. Lucia, this is where they will dock their boats. You can also stay in this part of the island. It is a little less popular and there's a little bit less to do here. So if you're looking for just sitting back at the resort and not really looking for that beachy vibe, this can be a really cool area to stay. But if you want to do some of the other activities around the island, then you will likely jump on a boat or get in a car to go to the other areas of the island. The next area is the southwestern part where you'll find Soufriere. This is where you will find the famous Piton Mountains, and this is where a lot of the outdoor recreation happens on the island. The town itself is not really built up or very touristy at all. If you do head into town here, you won't find all of those like t-shirt shops and those fancy restaurants. You'll get more of a cultural vibe here, where you're gonna go into the local restaurants where all the locals eat, where you can get some better prices on stuff, but this area isn't really built up for tourism. Although you will still have people trying to sell you tours, and this is their way of trying to make money on the island. But Jake and I did visit this area, and there are actually still some hidden gems around here. For example, we went to this one restaurant called Treehouse, which is just up this adventurous 4x4 road. But still to this date, it is one of the most unique and one of my favorite all-time restaurants. The views, the service, the food, the drinks, everything was just top-notch. So if people are interested in learning about all of these hidden gems in Soufriere, comment below and maybe I can make a video specifically to Soufriere. And lastly, there is the east side of the island. This is a little less popular because it borders the Atlantic Ocean, so the surf is much higher and you're not really getting that Caribbean vibe that most people come to the island for. The water will be like a little bit more murky, a little bit more turned up, and not quite as warm. But down in the southeast, this is where you will find Coconut Bay, which is another popular place you can stay. This area is popular if you kind of prefer just the more resort pool vibe. There are a few cheaper local places as you make your way northeast. So if you're looking to just explore a different part of the island, there are some places you can stay and you can actually get a great deal. But ultimately, people kind of stick more to the west side. That's where you'll find more of the touristy resorts, hotels, vacation rentals, and everything like that. Okay, now that you know which part of the island you might want to visit, let's talk about how to get there. So the main way people will get to St. Lucia is by airplane. but you can also get there via cruise ship or by private charter. There are 2 airports on the island of St. Lucia, but the main international airport is in the south called Huanora, and unfortunately this airport is on the opposite side of the country from where most people will be staying. There is a smaller airport in the northwest, but really the only way you'd be directly flying into this smaller airport is if you're coming from one of the nearby Caribbean islands, or some people might fly directly into Huanora, and then there is the option to take a helicopter to the smaller airport. And if budget is not an issue, I highly suggest this. This can act basically as a fun tour as you get to fly above the island and really just get a different perspective. Otherwise, you will likely take a shuttle or car to a resort. A lot of the resorts will set this transportation up for you. The drive will typically take 1 to 2 hours to get to your resort depending on where you are staying. Or of course, there are taxis outside of the airport if you're going more of a DIY trip, or you can rent a car, but we'll get more into whether or not you should rent a car later. Next topic, money or currency exchange. St. Lucia uses the Eastern Caribbean dollar, but almost everywhere around the island will accept US dollars. Currently, the exchange rate is $1 US is equivalent to $2.70 Eastern Caribbean dollars. Most shops, restaurants, etc. will accept credit cards or US dollars, but if you're doing more of a DIY style trip and you are not traveling to the resorts and maybe getting a vacation rental, there are times that maybe exchanging money before traveling could be beneficial. There are some entrance fees, or maybe some of the local restaurants don't accept credit cards. So for that, it might be nice to exchange Eastern Caribbean dollars, but you can also use ATMs to get some money out. But I don't really think exchanging money is super necessary when traveling to St. Lucia. And while we're on the topic of money, tipping is not necessarily required in St. Lucia, but 10% is pretty customary. I will say most people working in tourism will expect some sort of tip, so I'd say tipping between 10 and 20% is highly accepted in St. Lucia. Do St. Lucians speak English? And the resounding answer is yes. Especially St. Lucians working in the tourism industry, you will experience everyone speaking English. Although St. Lucians do speak French Creole, which is sometimes referred to as patois, so you might find some St. Lucians talking to each other in this language, so you will not understand them. But ultimately, you will not have a tough time speaking English to anyone there. If you do plan on traveling away from the resorts and going on your own, you might run into a circumstance where maybe you find someone that doesn't speak English, but for the most part, most St. Lucians will know English as well. Okay, so now let's kind of talk about accommodation. St. Lucia definitely has a large tourism industry, so most of the country is built up for tourists. Of course, there are many different styles of accommodation. You can choose a luxury all-inclusive resort, you can choose more of a budget hotel, or some sort of vacation rental. Like I mentioned before, Jake and I kind of split our trip into 2 different styles. When we first arrived, we stayed at Sandals Regency La Toc, and we wined and dined and just kind of sat by the beach and enjoyed ourselves. And the second portion of our trip, we grabbed a rental car, headed to a vacation rental, and did more of all the outdoor recreation and did some off the beaten path activities. And honestly, both experiences were quite different, but we really enjoyed both of them. So I'm gonna try to help you decide which vacation might work best for you. I'd say if you're going to the island and just looking for that relaxing vacation feel, then choosing an all-inclusive will be your best bet. And lucky for you, there are tons of options to choose from. We do have an article up on our website of the best luxury resorts, but for this video I will share my top 3 resorts that I think people will enjoy best. The first resort I would suggest is Sandals Grand St. Lucian. There are 3 Sandals locations along the northwest, and one cool feature to staying at a Sandals resort is you get a free shuttle to all of the other resorts on the island. Jake and I stayed at Sandals Regency La Toc, so we took a free shuttle up to the Grand, and it was just a little bit more grand than the place that we were staying at. Just kind of seemed like they have a little bit more going on. They had a better beachfront. We got to experience some of their nightlife there. So if I had to choose a Sandals resort again, I think I would choose Sandals Grand St. Lucian. The next resort I want to suggest is Sugar Beach. Jake and I got to visit for the day when we were staying in Soufriere. This resort sits between the 2 pitons. They actually import their white sand to have a luxurious beach here, and there is great snorkeling right from the beachfront. So this is like a next tier luxury vacation. And then lastly is Jade Mountain Resort, and this is one of the top accommodations in St. Lucia. They have some of the top-notch restaurants. The views are legendary from here. You get an infinity pool, But the one negative is it is set up on the mountain, and that's why you get such great views. But they do have a partner resort, which is down along the beach, that you also get access to. Those are the 3 resorts I would highly suggest if you're looking for that luxury all-inclusive resort. But of course, most all-inclusive resorts come at a premium price because they are including all of the restaurants, bars, and that special service you might receive. So there are more affordable places, but you might just have to do a little more DIY style, so that can help you not quite break the bank. But you might not have those restaurants, bars, and quite that level of service that you might receive at an all-inclusive resort. So some recommendations on more of the affordable side are Coco Palm, the Green Fig, which has a legendary view of Petit Piton, Bay Gardens Hotel, and Harbor Vista Inn. But I'll leave a link to all of these affordable hotels in the top right corner, or you can find a link in the description below. And like I mentioned, Jake and I stayed at a vacation rental, and it was significantly cheaper than our all-inclusive resort. And what was cool about that was then we had so much extra money to spend on some of those other activities that we didn't want to pay for at the resort. And since we were staying in Soufrière, then we were able to get ourselves to many of the outdoor activities and not go with a large tourism group. So we were able to have a little more peace and quiet at some of the places we visited. I will include links to all of these articles that we have on our website, along with the vacation rental we stayed in. We had a legendary view of Petit Piton from our balcony, which was just amazing for us. We could stare at that mountain all day long. But yeah, you simply do not have to break the bank to visit the country of St. Lucia. There are many different hotels, vacation rentals, and resorts for all different price ranges. Personally, if I am giving a recommendation for places to stay, I would choose a resort or hotel that has a view of the Pitons, just because otherwise you will be staying at a resort and you'll probably only get to go like one day, view these Pitons, and then go back to your resort. So following along on the trend, we also have another blog post that is strictly for hotels with Piton views. So if you're interested in that, highly suggest choosing one of those resorts, because that is probably the reason you chose coming to this country, and that view just simply never gets old. So that's my personal recommendation. So now let's talk about the best time to visit St. Lucia. The peak season in St. Lucia is from December to April. This is where you will find the most sunshine and really minimal rain. But conversely, you will also find that the resorts are much busier. It might be a little harder to get reservations at restaurants. Some of the tours might be booked up. It might just be a little harder to get some personal space on your vacation. You might be finding over some sun loungers, but of course you will have typically really good weather. The wet and rainy season is from June to November. This is also when hurricane season is, but because St. Lucia is so south, it's usually not in the path for most hurricanes. But that's not to say you might not get like super high winds and super heavy like rainstorms. Jake and I visited in October, so this was still in the rainy season, and we did experience rain nearly every day, but we also got sunshine nearly every day. So we got to go when we got some better discounts on accommodation and some tours and transportation and everything. So I'd say if you are looking to save some money, maybe try to visit on the ends of the wet and rainy season. It may be like October, November, or like May and June. Okay, now let's talk about getting around the island. If you are coming and staying at a resort, then you likely will not need to rent a car. Most of your transportation and shuttles to and from the resort will be handled for you. And additionally, if you book any tours, a lot of those companies will help get transportation to and from your hotel. Most people won't need to rent a car or book any taxis on their own. The resort will help you with that. But if you plan on doing more of a DIY style trip, like we did on the second half of our trip, and we found it helpful to rent a car so that we could get to and from some of the activities, you don't need a foreign driver's license. Just note that they do drive on the left side of the road, and that the roads are pretty windy and kind of sketchy, so I would say you should have some decent experience, like just kind of driving those mountainous, windy roads. And like I kind of mentioned earlier, if you book a tour, then you are in that crowd with that tour. So sometimes it was nice to have our own car when we were staying in Soufrière, and we were able to go on off times. So we were able to have some personal space when we went to like the mud baths. And we were able to go to some off the beaten path places where most tours don't end up, so it was kind of a unique experience. And if you're looking for more of that adventure travel, then I highly suggest doing that style. But if you are really just looking for a nice relaxing vacation, then don't even bother getting a car and have the resort just handle everything for you. Okay, briefly, let's kind of talk about staying connected, cell phones, Wi-Fi. Most resorts, hotels, anywhere that you are staying will have Wi-Fi, so you can use your phone with just Wi-Fi. If you plan on traveling off the resort, then you might need to check with your cell phone provider to see if St. Lucia is covered. For example, we have Verizon and we were able to get 2 gigabytes per day with our travel pass when we were traveling there. But of course, just check with your plan to make sure that you won't just be paying roaming charges everywhere you go outside of the resort. Otherwise, one super easy thing to do is get an eSIM. You can get one directly for the country of St. Lucia, or you can just get like a broad Caribbean eSIM. We do have a couple discount codes we can provide for you if you click through our links. We can give you a 10% discount with Airlo and a 5% discount with Maya. If you're interested, I will include those links in our description where you can get those special discounts. Another not so fun topic is travel insurance. You should always get travel insurance when you are traveling away from your home country. Obviously, accidents happen and you can't really plan for them, so having travel insurance will help you get that coverage, and from my experience, it's been relatively low costs, and if you are to get injured in a different country, it can just be helpful to have that safety net and be covered for any additional costs. Some reputable companies are Safety Wing, World Nomads, and Travel Alliance. Okay, now let's talk about probably the most fun topic, booking tours. One thing that is so amazing about St. Lucia is that it is so much more than just sunshine and beaches. There's tons of amazing outdoor activities that just make this island truly unique and special. So of course, when you're visiting St. Lucia, you must take some sort of boat tour to be able to see the pitons from the water. The pitons are a UNESCO World Heritage Site and just literally some of the coolest mountains I have ever seen. And luckily, there are tons of different boat tours that you can go on to be able to witness these beautiful pitons from the water. Okay, another very special and unique place to St. Lucia is the Sulphur Spring Mud Baths, which also has a drive-in volcano attached. But don't worry, it's not active. The last time it erupted was 200 years ago. But first, you should tour the volcano and see the boiling mud. There will be tour guides over there and they will walk you along and you can learn all about the volcanic area of St. Lucia. Then head over to the mud baths where you can soak in this mud. And it's said to be very healing and therapeutic. So a lot of people will cover themselves in mud, do some fun designs, and then go wash themselves off in the mud bath. And then there are showers where you can wash off any additional mud. And also, St. Lucia is world famous for scuba diving. We are not certified, but we can totally attest to the snorkeling being amazing there. If you are staying up in the northwest part, it's probably best to jump on a tour and then they will take you down to some of the amazing spots in Soufriere. Like us, we did stay down there for a little bit, so we did get to go at off-peak times, which was really nice. Some of our favorite places to snorkel were at Sugar Beach and Anse Chassenet. I know I'm pronouncing that wrong, but both of those were great for snorkeling and honestly some of the best snorkeling I've ever seen. Also, there is Trelly Falls, which is a 50-foot fall over a cliff. You can stand under it and it's just amazing. A lot of people will come here after the mud bath and wash off all the mud. There are many great hikes around the island of St. Lucia, but one that you must do is the Tet Paul hike. This one, it is quite a climb. The views at the top are absolutely legendary, and you get views of the Piton Mountains, so highly suggest. You will have to go with a guide, but definitely my favorite hike that we did on the island. Lastly, the island is known for cacao, so one very popular thing is to visit Project Chocolate, which is also attached to Hotel Chocolate. You can do a tree to bar or bean to bar and learn how to make your own chocolate bar from scratch. One of my favorite things that we did there is we visited the restaurant and they incorporate cacao into every single dish, including their cocktails, their entrees, their desserts. So that's a very unique and special activity we did in St. Lucia, and the views from the restaurant are magical. Many of these activities are in the southwest in the Soufriere area, so if you aren't staying in this area, I highly suggest doing a full day tour so you get to do all of these awesome activities all in one day. One suggestion I have from Castries is this full day catamaran tour to Soufriere. You can either scan this QR code right here or I will leave a link in the description below. And then there is also this private island tour with a customizable itinerary, because I feel like a lot of the tours don't quite include everything that I just listed, and you can customize it to what you want to do. So I highly suggest doing this and picking as many of the things I just listed, because those are some of the activities that make St. Lucia just so special and unique. Okay, next, let's kind of brush over drinking water. Tap water in St. Lucia is safe to drink, although you still do run the risk of getting sick from drinking the water out of the tap. Most of the resorts will have some water purification system, so it is always safe when they fill your water glasses at dinner or breakfast. But if you're at all concerned, then I highly suggest just drinking out of the water bottle, or I personally like my Life Straw or Lark water bottle. I often travel with these just because then I know I am always drinking safe water. Because you don't want something as simple as drinking tap water to ruin your vacation. So sometimes it's easier just to get a bottle of water or have some sort of water bottle that has a water purification system built into it. Next, let's talk about vaccines and medications. As of 2025, no vaccines are required to enter into the country, but of course you should always stay up to date on routine vaccines. And of course, just do your research quickly before traveling. Usually if you're booking a flight or getting a visa, they will let you know of any vaccines that you do need, but things are always changing and it's always good to stay up to date on any vaccines that you might need. And of course, medications, just always bring the type of medication that you need on your trip. It will be much harder to get there, although there are pharmacies that you can get medications from. And anytime I am traveling, I like to bring something like Tums, Imodium, ibuprofen, any of those basic medications, just in case any stomach issues happen. But okay, now let's talk about how long do you need in St. Lucia. Ultimately, I think 1 week is the minimum amount of time you should spend in St. Lucia. Of course, a few extra days might be nice, especially if you do plan on doing some of the tours. It can be really nice to have some more of those relaxing days. But yeah, I'd say anywhere from like a week to 10 days is the sweet spot. But if you are looking for more of an adventurous trip and maybe trying to get on some of those off the beaten path adventures like we did, we stayed for 2.5 weeks and it was awesome. But of course, we found some cheaper accommodations so that we weren't paying for an all-inclusive the whole time. So of course you can spend much longer if you prefer, but the sweet spot is for sure a week to 10 days. Thanks for coming along on another Two Roaming Souls adventure. I hope you guys found this guide really helpful. As you probably noticed, we have a blog for just about everything covering St. Lucia, so if you want more in-depth details about St. Lucia, head over to our website, tworoamingsouls.com. We cover everything from how to plan your trip, best tours, where to stay, off the beaten path attractions, and so much more. Please leave any questions you have in the comments below, and we'll catch you guys on the next one.